honest, where all the stars, you don't got to worry about going out there and talking media.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast. Friday at noon, Bo Wolf, Zach Berman, joined in studio today by the professor himself, Deniz Selman. We haven't talked to you in a while, Deniz. There's no Eagles game for you to jinx this week. How are you feeling? What's your general demeanor now that we are entering the very long offseason?
Look, listen. The team was 10-1 before I came on the show, and 1-6 after. It's not a perfect correlation, okay? So that's all I have.
It's
to
an
say.
aberration.
I mean,
we can blame the weather and
beat
the
the
snowstorm.
Giants.
There's lots of
beat the Giants after I joined.
It's not like they never won.
Yeah, and they'd lost to the Jets before. So I mean, that's all that's all the defense I need.
Okay, Zach, how are you doing? You
Doing
got
great.
perfect posture. You got your vest on. You're feeling good.
Doing well. Excited for the show. Always love when Professor Selman's here. And it's been a good week of shows. I'm going to miss you next week, so I'm already kind of preparing for that. And
see you on Friday.
I'm looking forward to these next 60 minutes.
All right. Well, we've got plenty to talk about. We want to get your thoughts, Deniz, on Vic Fangio coming in. Maybe some thoughts on what you'd like to see from offensive coordinator to be determined moving forward. We'll talk a little bit about the schedule for next season, but we have a little bit of coaching news as the Eagles are putting out interview feelers. Zach, why don't you give us the Stone Cold Newsman update?
So DJ Elliott has not been dismissed as far as we know publicly, but it seems to be like.
But it feels like maybe the plug to his turntable has been taken out.
Well, this is kind of the Gunter Brewer situation.
Gunter Brewer.
If you recall, is that one day all of a sudden he just took the Louisville job.
Fast, freaky, freaky, freak.
And so I say this as a way of saying the Eagles are clearly interviewing linebacker coaches right now. Joe Barry, the former Packers defensive coordinator, is well-traveled around the NFL, including a stint in San Diego that overlapped with Nick Sirianni's time in San Diego. He is interviewing with the Eagles, according to multiple reports. It certainly would sound like that would be for a linebackers coach job. And Mike Caldwell interviewing with the Eagles again, according to reports, after interviewing with the Eagles for the defensive coordinator spot. Caldwell, by the way, Jaguars defensive coordinator last year, was on the Bucs staff, had been on the Eagles staff at one point. So there's those are some Eagles coaching interview news.
Now,
Elsewhere,
do you think interviewing Mike Caldwell for the linebacker position is an indication that Fangio wants to play in like a base 5-1-5 defense?
No, I'm trying to.
Well, because he's only a Mike. It's not like they're interviewing his brothers.
Did you get that, by the way?
Will and Sam.
I kind of saw this one coming. Yeah.
All right, I was,
I mean, bring in all the Caldwells if we're going to care about linebackers, you know?
Put my kid to sleep every night, put my son to sleep every night. And he said to me last night, he says, Dad, why can't a nose be 12 inches? And I said, why? And he said, because then it will be a foot. And I said,
That's pretty good. I like that.
And I said, did you hear that in school today? And he said, I made it up. No, I don't know if he made it up.
That's a great joke.
But that's in line with your Mike Caldwell joke. Right
That's
there.
good. You know what I've been doing lately is we're working through spelling, right? And so when there's a silent E, like we do the word moose, MOOSE,
Yes.
we say a silent E. And I actually do a very good impression of a silent E. You ready?
I see what you did there. The audio listeners.
Pretty good.
Yes.
Wow.
Pretty good.
The one quick other thing is, I don't mean to deviate into like bedtime stories here.
Sure.
But Reed's getting really into sports, and from the library at school, he takes out like the history of whatever sport it is. And so Emily is end up reading to him a lot at night, and she's like, "These books are so boring." And then
Why aren't you reading?
I do some of that, but Emily does a lot of the reading at night. I tell stories. We talk about different things. We go over all the stats in the games. My son can tell you every day what the Sixers did the night before.
Okay.
Anyways, that's a bedtime story. But to the Mike Caldwell, before we deviated there, I don't think it indicates anything other than the fact that Vic Fangio is bringing in his own position coaches. But it's also worth noting, and this isn't to take away from DJ Elliott or from DK Montgomery last year, but the Eagles were interviewing coaches late in the process, right? I mean, if
Exactly.
you're talking to linebackers coaches who've been established defensive coordinators, that's quite different than hiring a college linebackers coach, right? So, or a college coordinator who's becoming your linebackers coach. So clearly, they're able to kind of swim in coaches with more distinguished NFL resumes at this point.
Right. This is what we talked about, like the chance to refresh the staff and have your pick of better options. Obviously, the fact that you would bring in a Vic Fangio and fill out the position coach staff with guys who have been in higher positions before, and maybe like Peter Principled over there. Like it seems like they're setting themselves up for a much more professional operation on defense.
This new regime of not letting you guys talk to the position coaches is really making it hard for me to have any feelings whatsoever about, guys like Ronell Williams and DJ Elliott, who are almost surely going to be gone. Like, it's like, I've never heard them speak. Like, I don't know what they did. Like, it was nice when they had those like media sessions during the bye week or whatever. I would hope that they bring those back. But
I don't
music
think you
my
need to
ears.
sell Zach on
Music
that.
my ears.
Well, they used to like each do a training camp press conference along the way. They didn't do that this year, right?
And something that they did, they scattered them around.
Some of them,
but
right.
Yeah, it's something we should reevaluate, and it's good for the coaches too because it enhances their visibility. On the offensive coordinator front, since we had our show last night, was it my days are all kind of coming together. Dave Canales, when did he get named? Was that during the show?
It was during the show because we were talking about the book.
Yes,
and then please fill in the listeners about your evening activity last night.
Well, Bo, I was listening back to our show, and Bo brought up the book that Dave Canales and his wife wrote, and so and it was kind of. I don't want to ascribe your tone, but it was almost in like a sarcastic tone.
All I did was read the description.
Okay, so Joy is laughing here, and I felt, I feel very strongly about this in general. You shouldn't cast judgment until you have more information, right? Like I always reserve judgment until I know what it is that I'm talking about. So I started reading the book as much as I could. Excuse me, I read about 25 pages last night.
Now let me ask you. Well, finish your story, and then I'm going to ask you a different question.
And I learned more about the Canales family and the Canales marriage. I learned how they got together. I learned how they met. I learned kind of what they were doing.
Did you put it in your spreadsheet of how coaches met their wives?
Oh, but now I know that one for sure.
You read about their philandering? Well, his.
Real quick on the way the coaches met their wives. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but Marissa, our former producer, who a lot of our longtime listeners know, sent Bo, Shio, and me a text the other night about Jim Harbaugh. And she said, did you know Jim Harbaugh met his wife in a P.F. Chang's parking lot? And I'm like, did I know? It's a great story. And I shared with them the whole story of how Jim Harbaugh met his wife.
Nothing in this world takes the place of persistence, you said.
Yeah,
So are
Jason
you
Kelsey,
trying to-
Jason Kelsey, according to from Calvin Coolidge, right?
Are you steering away from the Canales cheating? Is that or
Oh, I am not.
it's in the book you read?
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the other parts of the book, so
Okay.
I've
Now
only read
this is the other thing I want to
pages.
ask you about. As a published author who also has
Yes.
another book,
Yes. Coming out.
did you feel a little bit dirty about only reading the free preview?
Yeah, I did actually. I always like for instance, Malcolm Jenkins's book. I got sent an advance copy, but I bought the book because I do feel like if you're going to read the book, you should buy the book, hook up the author.
Drink the milk by the cow.
Something like that. But yeah, I have if I haven't read the full book yet, I should buy the book. You're right, but I didn't last night. I just wanted to kind of see what it was about regarding that. Anyways, that happened during the show. The Raheem Morris thing happened at night last night. I bring up Dave Canales because now the Bucs offense coordinator job's open. That's another offense coordinator job. Brian Johnson interviewing with the Bucs, but also I believe Kellen Moore is a candidate down there as well. So we will
Another team competing for
exactly for offense coordinator, and more specifically, another team that has the offensive coordinator calling plays because the Cleveland job might not be as attractive, for instance, as the Eagles job because Kevin Stefanski's calling plays. There's more autonomy, at least what we think, in Philly than there is in Cleveland. But when you look at jobs like New England, jobs like Tampa Bay, jobs like Philly, you're calling the plays. I mentioned Raheem Morris getting the Falcons job, which means, by the way, Bill Belichick might get shut out this cycle. But it sounds like Zach Robinson, the coach who you once saw at the cafeteria, is a prime candidate to be the offensive coordinator for the Falcons next year.
All right. Deniz, we've just been sort of sitting over there. We got to get you in the conversation here.
Sorry
I want to talk about.
Well, I did want to link the Dave Canales news to the Eagles. Apparently he has trouble staying faithful while on road trips in the NFL, and the Carolina Panthers will be coming to Philly next fall.
Exciting news for the women of
Insofar
Philadelphia.
as how it
No,
affects,
previously-
whether you want to be near the hotel or not be near the hotel that night, you can make your choice.
Please, this was previously in the marriage. Okay, this is like they've worked on their marriage. This is what the
Good
book,
for them, yes.
book is about. So please do not. Let's do not create an impression for something that's not the case.
But I mean, that could be theoretically an edge in the game, as if he's got to fight temptation that Saturday night in Philadelphia.
There you go.
It could be a sleepless night.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
Maybe he'll be sleepless thinking about the Vic Fangio
that
defense.
the Mistress Talk is a long-running thread on the PHLY Eagles podcast. All right, Deniz, let's talk about Fangio.
The original Dead Poet Society movie.
That's right. The original Dead Poet Society
Not
movie.
the novelization.
Right.
Not the Turkish translation.
And I know you were a fan of what Matt Patricia brought to the Eagles defense, and I know that this has been tough for you to move on from. But give us your level of excitement here of Fangio coming in.
I'm excited. I think a lot of my thoughts on this are similar to what you guys have expressed on previous, like the shows the last couple of weeks, is that I really would like the offensive coordinator to bring like new ideas and be more modern and fresh and all this kind of stuff. I think with defensive coordinator, having the veteran with the high floor, who's going to be able to get guys to line up and have their respect and all that kind of stuff. I think it's great. I think there's definitely the question of, is the Fangio scheme like now suffering from the same thing that the cover three Seattle defense suffered from, where like every offense designed
on
plays,
solving this problem.
Exactly. So that's definitely going to be a challenge for him, and it's been a challenge for all of the Fangio tree coaches who are like losing their jobs and getting fired all over the place. I think it's going to be interesting to see how much he adapts. Like, I can talk about what the Miami defense did this last year, and I have some numbers for that in terms of the coverages and how it's related to what the Eagles were doing with Desai. But I think it's going to be, the most interesting thing is going to be how much Fangio changes from game to game and how much he changes as offenses are, not that impacted anymore by the late safety rotation and some of the things that are his staples. So, one of the things I can start with, like, I think a lot of people know, like, Fangio starts with two high safeties and rotates and all that stuff. So I'll get to that in a second. But one game that I always think about with Fangio, which was interesting to me, is that 2021 game, and I mentioned it on the show before, 2021 Eagles at Broncos.
Let your nuts hang.
The best ever game by Jalen Hurts, to date at the time. So maybe it wasn't a great game for Fangio, but interestingly, schematically in that game, I just went back and looked at my notes from that game.
That's impressive.
Cover one blitz, cover one blitz, cover one blitz, cover zero blitz, cover three, cover one blitz, cover one blitz, cover three, cover one blitz. It was like an insane amount of man blitz in that game from Fangio. Didn't do a lot of the stuff he does with the too high and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was really interesting that that's the way he thought he could play against that.
It's so
offense
interesting
at the time.
right,
That was the adjustment he made. Yeah. That's good.
And it didn't work at all. Jalen Hurts looked like Brady against that. They were moving the pocket and avoiding the blitz and doing all these things. It was that looking back at that game was interesting for both reasons, right? It was interesting to see Fangio so out of character, and it was also where is this moving the pocket to avoid the blitz stuff that the Eagles did in that game that they literally
Especially
never did
because
again.
It felt like at the time the reason that teams weren't doing that against the Eagles, blitzing and playing man, was because it invited Jalen to scramble, and pick up yards that way, and that's not what he was doing in that game.
No, it was stepping up in the pocket and finding guys downfield and hitting Devontae Smith and everything. Yeah, it was really interesting how Of course, there was no A.J. Brown that year. It was like Jalen Reagor on the other side, right? So playing man, trusting his corners and whatnot.
And Devontae
was
made
part
some
of
great
it.
catches in that game.
He did against Surtain.
Yep.
But anyway, like that was an example of how he can adapt from game to game. But when you look at his overall numbers from this year, it is like the Eagles really were like not the Turkish novelization, but like the novelization of the movie. It was like a watered down version, because you look and it's like, they play like a crazy amount of cover six, which is like, like you've got quarter, half. So you start with two safeties, and then like you have a one corner squatting and the safety high on that side. That's a good tool to use against like a star wide receiver. By the way, I highly recommend reading Sean Syed's piece, the Book of Fangio, which is just this like long article about like going through and detailing all of the schemes that Fangio does. And one of the things that he wrote in that is to combat Sean McVay's famed illusion of complexity, the Fangio defense uses the appearance of simplicity. The same exact defensive look can end up in a plethora of coverages, pressures, and assignments. So it is like such an extreme version of that when you look at Miami's numbers. Like they did more sim pressures than anybody else in the league. Like they did, they start in too high like 80% of the time, which is higher than anybody else in the league. But then they end up in too high on only 50% of the snaps. Mm-hmm. So the amount of times that they disguise was just like much higher than other teams. They did 36% middle of field disguise. That was third highest, but the top two were only like a little bit above them. The Eagles were 28% last year. Like I said, a slightly watered down version of that. And it's almost always open to close disguise, meaning that they start with two high safeties and then one of the safeties has to rotate down. And so to your discussion yesterday about will the Eagles invest in safety linebacker, like in that piece, like Sean Syed calls the safeties like the queen on the chessboard for Fangio. I really think that it's more likely that the Eagles would make sure to get him a safety. Yeah, right. Like I don't know if that would be drafting one high and trusting a rookie to do the things that he asked the safeties to do, or to sign a free agent. But
and in theory, if you just look at it, like the free agency safety class does look better than the free agent linebacker class.
Looks better. Yes. That's what I was about to say. Yep.
And you were saying the same is true for the draft, or was the other?
You
way
were saying the opposite.
Other way around.
There's more.
Okay.
There's like three, or if you just look at rankings and kind of linebackers in that 30 to 100 or 30 to 80 range, it's a better time to find a linebacker there than it is a safety there. Now, of course,
and you can read Zach's 3-round mock draft, his Eagles mock draft, on allphly.com right now if you're a diehard.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd be happy to discuss that. So to that point though, I think this is a better year to sign a safety, especially, and I don't mean to get ahead of you here. If for some reason Antoine Winfield Jr. is not kept by Tampa Bay, that will be the type of guy you can splurge on.
I've always been a huge fan of his, by the way, like huge fan. I thought he was like one of the biggest reasons they won the Super Bowl. Like I just thought he was. I just think he's a great player. I
do think is the scheme washed thing is even if that is true, it is. And Zach made this point yesterday. Like it's so different to have bringing in the scheme and bringing in the guy who created the scheme, because he is the one who was in the first place capable of designing the scheme. He has it within him to like design good. Like he is not the one who was wedded to this because he's trying to simulate it. He is the one who is capable of, like he has it in him to design things differently.
Right. And Sean Desai made the point when he started last year that there's a difference between having studied Fangio on film and having worked for him.
Right.
Well, think about the difference. Exactly. What about being him? You know what I mean? Like it's like this guy has put in these schemes for a reason. Like it was to combat the things that offenses were doing at the time, and he's also the one who the year that the Rams lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots, he was the one who played with those like 6-man defensive line fronts to combat the outside zone game of the Rams, and Belichick copied him.
Yeah, in the second half
Super Bowl.
especially, right?
Yeah, and then they scored 3 points in the Super Bowl, and Belichick was playing those 6-man defensive lines as a like almost an exact copy of what Fangio did. That 2018 Bears defense was awesome. Like it was like the best defense in the league, first in DVOA, first in all kinds of things.
Just couldn't stop Golden Tate at the goal line.
That's right.
When he
Made it
didn't
all
even know
worth
the play. Golden Tate. All right. Anyway.
You've got him off track.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh my God. Anyway. I think one of the reasons, somewhere in my brain, my how much I disliked Kevin Byard was because you just reminded me of Golden Tate. Like, I don't know why it was. Just
the midseason trade.
The midseason trade, just like how
but
bad
much
he was.
lower cost. I mean,
sure, but
Golden Tate's
during
not
the
from
season, you're not thinking about that as much. But anyway, yeah, that's bad. But
Anything
Kevin
else on
Byard's not
Fangio?
going to cut it next year.
right.
Yeah, that's not
And
going
the
to work.
Sidney Brown injury makes it like they need somebody for sure.
Right. Yeah. The one other thing I want to mention, and this is a warning because I know not everyone's going to like this. Fangio loves dropping one of the edge rushers into coverage. Okay, like that's just going to happen. He has these a variety of different pressures. One is called, and these are all like I'm just taking these directly from Sean Syed's piece, and he's talked about this on their podcast as well. He has something called slug, where the nickel blitzes, and then the edge rusher on the other side drops out, right? Like he has another one where one of the linebackers blitzes and the edge rusher drops out. If you check my Twitter, I posted 2 plays from the Eagles-Dolphins game this last year that resulted in, one of them resulted in a sack, and one of them resulted in the pick 6 that the Dolphins got against the Eagles. And they both involved some sort of pressure from the edge, and like one of them had an edge rusher dropping and taking away the RPO. The thing that I like about the way he does it is it always seems to have a purpose. Like it's like, look, the Eagles like to run this kind of RPO out of this formation, so I'm going to drop the edge rusher exactly into the window of the slant, while bringing another guy. It's going to muddy the read for the quarterback, and it's going to make him hold the ball, and it's going to do this. And then the pick 6, the defender that Jalen is reading, the edge rusher, collapses on the running back, and then the corner blitzes, replacing the edge rusher. And so what ended up happening is Jalen holds the ball because he sees the edge rusher, the guy he's reading, and Fangio knows exactly who Jalen's reading, obviously. And then when he goes to throw the ball, the corner's in his face. I don't know if you guys remember that play, but he ends up throwing the ball with the corner like 1 foot from his arm. So that play that is clearly designed to take away that kind of RPO or that kind of play that the Eagles run. So my hope is that there's going to be a lot of this kind of thing where it's like, look, this was designed to stop this thing that the offense does, as opposed to we're a Fangio defense, and so we're going to rotate the safety down for no reason, which is like what the Eagles seem to be doing.
It is the perfect encapsulation of what we're talking about, of not being several layers removed of the person designing it. Like with him, it is for a reason. And like, is it not ideal to see Hassan Reddick dropping 8 times a game or whatever? Sure, but if it is purposeful and it's not just, okay, we have a static 5-man front, the offensive formation is lined up this way, and so everybody knows that means Hassan Reddick has to drop, and we've just got 3 defensive tackles rushing instead, that stinks. If it is he's dropping and one of the linebackers or the nickels is replacing him, and it is part of a larger picture, like that is a different conversation.
Right. No, that's exactly right. Now, a lot of this stuff is going to have to be installed very well, and the players are going to have to learn how to do it, because a lot of the things he does involves players making reads during the play. And we saw the Eagles by the end of this last year not even be able to line up, right? So he has this thing called cover 3 sight, where you start with 2 safeties and then 1 safety rotates down to the flat. But it's only based on what the receivers do, like who ends up getting the flat and who ends up being the hook between the linebacker and the safety. Just reading about that, it's like confusing. You know what I mean? It's like I can really see how players could get confused here and both run to the flat. I mean, the Eagles were all running to the flat even when they were just playing a regular zone coverage last year. So you really need this kind of stuff to be installed, and you need your safeties to be very smart and know exactly what they're doing. And Fangio is a big fan, of course, of light boxes. You need the defensive line to be really good. I mean, especially against the run, whether you're, 2-gapping or whatever it is. Like, you need Jordan Davis to stay in shape all year and all this kind of stuff. You need Jalen Carter to continue to dominate, and then the scheme can kind of can work for you. If you have weaknesses at any of those spots, it's gonna be harder. So I'm fascinated to see what they do personnel wise this offseason.
I'm curious to see if they actually have an offseason program, like a more, I shouldn't say actually, they've had it in the past, but a more rigorous one where they're on the field more than they have been in the past 3 years. Because to your point,
it's a good question.
If you're having a new offensive scheme and a new defensive scheme, it would behoove you to like not really start practicing that in late July. You when you have the opportunity in May and June to do it.
What did they do going into 2021?
The COVID, it was COVID affected.
Okay.
So they actually did not really they didn't have a mandatory mini camp. They had 1 week when the team was together, and then they kind of picked everything up during training camp. But even that year, they were kind of late figuring everything out, and it was the middle of the year when they started to know their personnel and kind of know how to use it.
Because you just think about it, the year after that, everybody's the same. There's no staff turnover, and then the year after that, they're coming off the Super Bowl. You don't want to keep, you don't want to put extra miles on those guys' legs. So it's a good question.
One last thing, I mentioned the edge rusher will drop into coverage some, which won't be a thing that WIP callers are going to be happy about.
Or Hassan and Josh to that point too.
Well, sure. Another thing they won't be happy about is he doesn't believe in pressing with both corners. Seth Walder tweeted out the rankings of teams that have both outside corners and press coverage. And so the Chiefs were first at 41%. That's like a big Spags thing. The Dolphins were 31st at 4% in that. Eagles were kind of in the middle. So that's not like he really believes in like if one of them's pressing, the other one should be off. So just something to keep in mind.
Well, if the Eagles need to free up some cap space in order to pay a safety, one way that they might be able to do it is by using Rocket Money. Because Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. If you are in charge of the Eagles cap, you could see all of your subscriptions in one place. You've probably got a diehard subscription to PHLY. You don't want to cancel that one. But I don't know, maybe do you need all the other ones? Maybe not. And if you see something you don't want, just cancel it with a tap, and you never have to get on the phone with customer service. They will even try to give you a refund for the last couple months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. So if you see the Eagles sign a safety and there is a bizarre number of the guarantee that includes $720 at the end, you will know that they used Rocket Money. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY.
Now, the best thing that's come from Brooklyn to Philly is Julia. The second best thing is Brooklyn-style bagels. The Bagels and Co. are Brooklyn-style bagels that are made in Philly with Philly love. We're talking about huge bagels, the biggest bagels in Philly, and we're talking about a huge variety as well. 15 to 20 different types to choose from daily. You might like them untoasted, you might like them toasted. However it may be, there's 15 to 20 varieties you can use. And there's also a large cream cheese variety, so there's a lot of different combinations that you can use of this bagel with that cream cheese and that bagel with this cream cheese. And on top of that, they're an affordable brand. So we're not talking about something you have to wait for tomorrow just to have on a weekend. We're talking about something that can be part of your everyday staple. It's not a high-end place that you splurge on weekends. It's every day, and it's not artisan. It's the type of place that caters to the individual with a lot of repeat customers. And by the way, I keep talking about the bagels. Really good coffee as well, and not $7 coffee. It's high quality coffee at a good price point. For the best Brooklyn style bagels made right here in Philly, head to www.thebagelsandco.com/store locator. There's a hyphen in between store locator to find the closest Bagels and Co near you.
Zach, I felt a little bad about the toasting bagels gatekeeping. If you like it that way, that's okay.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I was very happy.
I appreciate the apology.
I was very happy that everyone on Twitter was just quietly in agreement with our take on that.
Well,
with your take,
I
get to hear my take.
I've never been yelled at more about anything than like
there is a gatekeeping of that. From like New York bagel places will not let you toast your bagel. But if that's how you like it, that's how you like it.
Zach, you lived in Charlottesville?
Yeah, of course.
Did you go to Bodo's?
Of course, many times.
Bodo's does not toast bagels.
I remember that well.
They absolutely refuse.
Yeah.
And they're in the middle of Virginia. So
yes.
it's not exactly a New York place.
I went there quite a bit. I also went to Little John's, if you know that.
Did you know that Little John's is reopening?
I did. I saw that.
Nice.
May the
All
Chris Long's hoagie live in peace,
Nice.
right? Or forever prosper. Yep. Someone told me after that show, if you said the sky was blue, Bo would say, "How could you dare say the sky is blue?" And then he would make you feel like you're oppressing everyone who does not feel like the sky is blue.
I don't think that's fair.
I just
now the problem is if I disagree with you, then
I want everybody to know that the gatekeeping apology was from Bo only. I'm not apologizing. So, all right.
Okay.
But
I'm
appreciate
curious. You are such a fascinating being to me that I just every time a new piece of information comes out, I'm so curious. I'm so fascinated.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right.
Compound interest.
We'll get to the time machine at the end, I think. Deniz, you are, in addition to...
Or we could use it to do it at the beginning.
That's true, yeah. In addition to watching the tape and grinding the tape, you are also a voracious consumer of all things Eagles media. I wonder what your thoughts were on the press conference from Wednesday.
Yeah, it's always fun, these press conferences where you just know it's going to be the news, right? Like, and there's so many questions to break down and everything else. And in terms of
every single answer is like that's going to be an article for somebody. Like
yeah. And I can see with some of the questions, I can literally like feel some of your eyes rolling in the room as well, which is fun. But the question that obviously everyone's talking about that kind of struck me, and I kind of want to address that one first, is the Tim McManus question, right? Of basically, so what do you do here?
The office space, yes.
Yeah, and I don't think he meant it in a mean way, but I thought it was a fair question, and I thought it was a good question, one that needed to be asked as soon as they basically revealed that he wasn't going to be in charge of the offense anymore. It's like, okay, like what are you doing? I think. Look, there are examples of NFL head coaches who don't call plays on either side of the ball. The ones that everyone are going to refer to are John Harbaugh, and Mike Tomlin. Obviously, you have Dan Campbell now as well. I think it's, one of those things where, like, a lot of times people are like, well, what are you going to do when your coordinator they say this about a defensive head coach as well. You guys probably saw the recent talk about how no offensive coordinator has been in place
since the end of the 2021 season,
which is crazy, right? Mm-hmm. I guess if you count Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator, he would be the only exception.
No, the exception there is that Dave Ragone is technically still employed by the Falcons. Because the 49ers have offensive coordinator. They
sort of do. They have a pass game guy.
He's still. But his
title isn't even offensive coordinator though. But anyway, whatever. Yep. That's not the
Meanwhile, Pete Carmichael just got fired after being the Saints offensive coordinator for 15 years in a row, which is just wild.
Yeah. Well, I think Sirianni's answer to the question was extremely clumsy.
Yes.
He said that they were going to maybe shuffle the core values, which is such a funny answer because he made a point about a month ago to say that the order of the core values doesn't matter. That he's like, that one's the third one. And he's like, and it's only the third one because we said it third. And this time his answer was like, we might change the order of the core values, which is also funny. I was hoping that maybe...
It's funny that he made it like that's the big offseason project is figuring out what order they should go in.
But I know one thing you'd be happy about is if they fix the parts of speech problem.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll have time for that now. He can make it so that, It
was a clumsy answer, but I do think we should have learned by now not to be judging Nick Sirianni by press conferences.
Absolutely, and that was my thought as well. I didn't think that first press conference was that bad, by the way. I thought people were way over the top and mean about that, just because he was stuttering and nervous. I didn't think the things he said were that bad.
I think Nick is. If I can just interject real quick, I think Nick is much better when he's not trying to sound a certain way. Mm-hmm. When he's just like himself, he's much better. I think for these high leverage press conferences, if you will, he gets it in his head that he has to come off a certain way,
if there are too many talking points, he's trying
exactly to get, yes, they're filling his mind with this way.
Right.
If Nick's just himself, then he can be goofy or something, but he comes off authentic.
He's honestly not nearly as bad an actor as Doug was. Remember, Doug would come out with an agenda to be tough for whatever. Sometimes,
that was really funny. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the one piece of advice I would give to Nick is just don't be afraid to end a sentence. Like,
yes, exactly.
Just don't be afraid of a period. Like there are so many times when he gives a good answer, and it should just be over, and then he talks for another minute.
Yes,
exactly. He just keeps going.
And you don't get the sense that it's intentional. Like it's not filibustering. He's not doing it to avoid more
it's
questions.
Like he just doesn't know how to land the plane.
Or he thinks you're helping you. Like he thinks he wants to help.
Right.
And so he's like, let me tell this story about when this happened. And it's
right. He'll be like, did I answer your question? And you'll be like, yeah, you did.
Minutes ago.
Yeah, you did. And he'll still continue even after you say, yeah, you did. Like, yeah.
But as to, yes, the comparisons with Harbaugh and Tomlin.
But like, here's the thing. Like, we can talk about Harbaugh and Tomlin briefly, but I think there's an interesting kind of combination of criticism of what's happening right now, which is people are saying that like, well, he's been neutered now. Like, what's the point of him being here and everything? But a lot of the people who are saying that didn't like what he was doing with the offense, right? So it reminded me of the famous line in Annie Hall. Zach, do you know Annie Hall?
No, is that the Annie movie?
Okay,
the Annie play, rather?
Okay, so I'm very happy about this right now because I was predicting that you would have not heard of Annie Hall, one of the most famous movies of. No, not red hair. That's a different movie called Annie. This is Annie
the
Hall.
Red hair, right?
Yes, Annie's the red hair. That's good. I'm impressed that you know that.
Annie Hall.
Okay.
Annie Hall. It's a movie by. Have you heard of Woody Allen?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's his most famous movie. So
is Annie Hall? Okay.
Yeah.
It's before my time.
That's okay. It is that it's true that it's before your time. In any case, there's a sorry. There's a famous line from
there's
Annie a famous
Hall.
line in Annie Hall where
the sun will come out tomorrow.
That's from Annie the play. Yes.
Did you have to see Annie with your kids or something? Like, why do you know it?
Yeah, my daughter had an Annie doll.
Okay. Yes. I do. There, had some reason. All right. So in Annie Hall, there's the sorry. In Annie Hall, there's the line where these two women are having lunch at a resort or something, and one of them says the food here is terrible. And the other one says, yeah, in such small portions, right? So, which is funny, obviously, because like if it's terrible, why do you care that the portions are small? So that's exactly what I feel like I'm hearing when I briefly tune in and on WIP and stuff. Like people are like Sirianni's offense sucks, and then in the same breath they're like, and he's not even going to be in charge of the offense anymore. Why is he here? And it's like, okay, like I think either one of those is an okay thing to say, but when you say both of them, it's like which one do you have an issue with? It's like if you don't think he should be in charge of the offense, then you shouldn't be upset that he's not going to be in charge of it anymore. You could be upset that he's not being fired, but that's a different kind of thing.
I think there are a couple things here. One is you could read it as, if we take it at face value that he is not going to be involved in the offense much at all, then the read to me is the Eagles are setting this up as like the head coach is a fungible part of what is going to make this organization tick, right? Like we're going to install Vic Fangio, literal Vic Fangio as a defensive coordinator. We're going to find somebody who is a bright offensive mind. Those are the things that are going to matter on the field. And Nick can be culture guy, and that is like the 8th most important thing that matters to the product. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Right.
I also don't fully believe that this is like Nick hands off on the offense. I don't know that he is capable
you were saying that yesterday,
of doing that. And it also is going to depend on who they bring in. I think he's still going to be very involved there. My issue with this setup
is Fangio is going to kick him out of the defensive meeting pretty quick. So he's not going to have anywhere else to go.
Right, exactly. Yeah. My issue with it is the things that would be left to theoretical head coach of the team are the things that he has struggled with, like the game management stuff. Maybe this is like, okay, get back in the lab and work on that.
Yeah.
Maybe they can bring in somebody who's going to be in his ear and he will listen to. And then the culture stuff, like the culture stuff has been great for 2.5 years, but it wasn't great at the end of last season.
I would love to know what the hell happened at the end of last season. Culture-wise.
I think they would love to know too. I think there's a lot of like, we don't necessarily know why things went wrong as well.
Right. Like, is it the kind of thing that like as soon as everyone's gone for the like summer and comes back, it's going to be okay? Or is it going to be something that is lingering And there are going to be players who are like, this guy's back again, like, and the culture is going to be broken. I just don't think it's the second thing. Like, I don't know. I don't know what you guys...
I don't think so either, just because nobody wants to show up to work and not, like, this is their guy's job. Like, they're gonna try to buy in.
Right. Yeah. No,
Plus, Nick's going to work hard. You can bet your bottom dollar that.
Well, sure.
To the point about the bottom dollar, that's an Annie reference. I know what you did there, Bo. To the point about what's Nick's role. And
you really went in on learning about Annie.
Plus, he hates plays.
Anything that my daughter's interested in.
Especially musicals. Breaking into song.
I can tell you all about Taylor Swift songs now.
Okay.
We listen. There's this song "Never Grow Up" that my daughter knows all the words to. It's a nice message in the song. In any event, Jason Kelsey, speaking about Taylor Swift, December 2022 New Heights podcast, and Bo's least favorite segment, which is a mailbag segment. There was a listener who asked Travis and Jason, if your coach doesn't call plays, what does he do? Mm-hmm. And Jason gave a defense about how he actually likes it when the coach's sole job is to narrow in on game situations. And he says they're more involved with the team, they're more in the moment, they're more managerial, they communicate more. And then later on in that answer, this is a quote. He said, the bigger part of that job is being able to lead, being able to manage, being able to communicate, being able to keep everybody going in the right direction and situational ball. Right. Now, if you are of the opinion that Nick was not good enough in those areas this past season, and certainly those last 7 games, there's evidence of that. Game situations were a problem, right? The messaging, the managing was not working well. But to Jason's point, what the main part of being a head coach, and he said this in different answers, is being a head coach of the entire football team, right? So if you believe that Nick Sirianni has the leadership ability, the communication ability, the personality to be the person who can oversee, manage, communicate with the entire team, then he'll be fine this year with those roles. If you feel he's deficient in those areas, that's when you say he's kind of like an empty suit in that position.
Or maybe the thought is if you're freeing him up, there is professional development that he can get better at those things because he has more free time.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. So let's talk about as this offense changes. Theoretically, Deniz, what are some of the things that you would like to see implemented in a new Eagles offense?
Before that, I just want to say one thing. I thought it was a little bit worrying that when Howie was asked in the presser, then why is Nick going to still be here? I think E.J. Smith asked him, are you going to still have confidence in him? Howie's answer was almost...
That was Brooks Cabina from...
Oh, was it really? Okay, sorry. I got mixed up the questions.
Is it Cabina or Cabena? Or...
I'll ask Brooks.
We're going to have to get Brooks.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been Cubena.
Okay.
Brooks Cabena. We're going to ask him.
The answer that he gave was based almost entirely on his record, right?
He watched our show.
It was like it's hard to make the playoffs 3 years in a row. By the way, 6 teams have made the playoffs 3 years in a row,
including the Eagles.
Including the Eagles, yeah. Tampa, Dallas, San Francisco, Kansas City, Buffalo are the others.
Okay.
Surprised I didn't have that number.
It's man, I haven't checked how many teams
he had the record.
It was very funny. Yeah. But it was all based on it's hard to find this. It's hard to find someone who's going to win this many games and all of that. And it's almost as if he gives Sirianni credit for the wins, right? But not for any of the tangible on-field things that led to those wins, right? And that's a really interesting thing, right? It's and that's I think the problem that a lot of fans are having with this decision is that it's if you don't think that he's doing anything good on the field, why are you giving him didn't the wins then come from the roster and things like that? It's tough. I don't know. I mean, he does have the second best win-loss record of any of the active NFL coaches. I guess Jim Harbaugh is back now, so maybe I guess he's third now. But
he's won 2/3 of his games. It's hard to do.
Yeah, and I mean he won. In the time that he's been here, there have only been 4 teams to win more games, and 2 of those are Dallas and Buffalo, who never even got past the divisional round. So you could argue that only Kansas City and San Francisco have had tangibly better outcomes, and even San Francisco, we'll see what happens this Sunday. But some of the things that really confuse me about Nick, and this is to address your question, Bo, it's like he's changed before, right? Like he's been able to adapt. He changed in the middle of 2021. Yep. He was willing to accept change then. He was trying to be like the Phillip Rivers Chargers when he got here. And then after 7, he gave up play calling, right? This is like an and we'll see who comes in, but like it's an extra version of that. It's like he's giving up some power in order to see overall improvement, and he's willing to try different things. This idea that the RPO game and the QB run-oriented play and all that kind of stuff is like his offense is a little funny, right? Because that's not what he came in doing. Like, it's not what Shane Steichen came in doing either. So hopefully there would be some ability to adapt to that. Now, your question about what I'd like to see. Coming in, I had this like general question of, based on the candidates being revealed, like the Kingsburys and the Jerrod Johnsons, and like, is it better to get someone whose style contrasts with what Nick has done, right? Does that risk having too many cooks in the kitchen, like the Scangarello, type thing? Or is it better to have someone who shares similar philosophies? But then in the presser, Sirianni, first of all, said, like, I'm not really going to be doing the offense anymore. And then he just kept saying fresh ideas, right? Yep. And you guys were talking about this a little yesterday. I thought that implied that a Jerrod Johnson type candidate is possible, because it's like, ideas from different different styles of offense that he's worked with. And if his lack of experience is the reason that you think that he wouldn't get this like head coach offense type position, I was just thinking like if Jeffrey Leary hired Andy Reid like when he was the quarterback's coach to be the head coach of the whole team, and I know it's like a different era in his life and where the team stands and all this kind of thing, but if anything, and you guys talked about this as well, like you don't want to have 3 head coaches in the room, right? Like you already have Fangio there. You don't necessarily want to bring in a guy with too much experience who's been a head coach and all this kind of thing, because then it is really going to be like now the players are going to start thinking like, what does Sirianni do, right? So yeah, I'm not sure about that. Now I will say
I am surprised we haven't heard any reported interviews with college people yet.
You're right.
And I think that's an interesting possibility, and maybe the thing that would be most exciting to me.
And that's not something they've been against in the past, right? So
right. Remember they've interviewed.
And it's something college coaches sometimes are reluctant to reveal for recruiting purposes and that kind of thing.
I do have breaking news. I have a response from Brooks on the pronunciation of his last name, and not only that, he didn't just give me like a phonetic text. This is a voice message. Are we ready?
So we're gonna get to hear it.
Yeah. Thank you to Brooks. Here we go.
I love
Cabina.
So I was right.
All right.
Cabina. Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
Cabina?
Yeah.
Okay.
First time I ever
Give
got
you
a pronunciation right.
Yeah, that's good.
I made Julia laugh. Thank you. I just want to add one thing to what Professor Selman was saying a few moments ago when he was talking about Howie's answer about why they kept Nick. And I think this is important to point out. Jeff McLean had a tweet yesterday, and it surprised me when I was texting with Jeff about it, how this is like news to people, but Nick does not report to Howie. Okay, Howie's not the one who decides to keep Nick or not. Jeffrey Lurie's the one who decides that. The Eagles have a structure, and it's in the news now because some other teams are changing their structure. The Eagles have had this structure now going back to ever since they kind of fired Andy, where the coach reports to the owner and the GM reports to the owner. Doug Peterson didn't report to Howie Roseman. Chip Kelly didn't report to Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman didn't report to Chip Kelly, although maybe he would. The only year
I think that's how it should be.
Yeah, the only year that was not the case was in 2015, I believe, when I don't know if things were murky that year, but I don't know if Ed Manowitz technically reported to Chip, or he might have actually reported to Howie on the organizational chart, but in essence, he was reporting to Chip.
That's how it should be. Their jobs are different. Their timelines are different. They need to be worried about different things.
But there was this thought, and I saw there was like criticism. Why isn't like Howie being grilled on the decision to keep Nick? It wasn't Howie's decision to keep Nick. Now Howie's obviously close with Jeffrey. They've worked together for going on to 3 decades now. So the relationship,
and also presumably he was in those meetings.
Sure, exactly.
Right.
But Bo and I will have a chance to speak with Jeffrey Lurie at the league meetings in March. That's when Jeffrey Lurie speaks annually, and we'll get more clarity on Jeffrey's decision. But I did want to make that clear because when Jeff put that out, there was I do know anecdotally there was like response like, wow, has this always been the case? I didn't know this. Nick has never reported to Howie, and Doug he did not report to Howie as well.
All right, a couple more things to get to here, Deniz. You wanted to go through the schedule for next year.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Just real, I mean, I don't know if this matters, but Brooks actually asked about what do you find yourself open to changing in the offense, and Howie just talked about the record. Like his question wasn't that, and then Chris Franklin is the one who asked about bringing him back. But anyway, I did have a quick thing about the static, the staleness of the offense. I'm curious if...
Have you ever done that baguette trick?
The water thing?
Yeah.
I really believe in eating like bread fresh. I will not.
Of course.
I will not touch it like once it gets I'm very Emily is not a big fan of this because it just means there's like food laying around all the time that I don't want to eat, but
okay.
Yeah,
you just refuse. Okay.
I mean, I just won't eat it, yeah.
Okay.
No. I'm sure the trick's good.
I mean, it doesn't.
But
it's
you can
not
always
fresh,
just like
but it's certainly better.
go to the bakery and get
it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean it's I like French toast. I guess that's that kind of counts,
toast,
right? Yeah. But
crumble them up. You could put it in your scrambled eggs or something like that. There's a couple uses.
Yeah, there you go.
Wait, you crumble up like breadcrumbs? You're saying?
Stale bread you could use.
Yeah.
Really?
You can make croutons out of it.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to make croutons. Yeah, croutons put in soup or whatever. Yeah.
Now, we're just meaning like the bread is old, not like there's not mold on it, right?
No, of course not. I'm not eating moldy bread.
That's what I wasn't sure about.
That's a delicacy if it has mold.
I wasn't sure what you're referring to there.
No.
Okay, so just a few days old bread.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like a nice piece of bread. Like if you haven't eaten like a nice loaf of bread,
gotcha.
you can find some uses for it.
Okay.
Zach was mentioning T. Martin and like how the Greg Roman like stuff would be interesting for the run game and that kind of thing. So I was wondering about Jeff Stoutland, right? He's the run game coordinator,
yes.
And a lot of the stuff that we've seen with like the lack of motion and the like has been consistent throughout the time that Stoutland's been here. It's it'll be interesting to see if like some like high motion offensive coordinator is hired, whether they would have as much motion as they did where they were before. You know what I mean? Like, or if that's the kind of thing that like it helps the protections and things like that. If there isn't motion,
especially if they have a new center, right? Like,
yeah, that's true too. I guess it's bad. It's a bad scientific method because like you're changing two things then, like,
right.
And we won't know if it was Kelsey or if it was
exactly.
But do you think Kelsey's like don't have motion because then I can't figure out the protections?
He wants to see the picture before.
That doesn't strike me.
Doesn't
as
seem like his
deal.
thing. Like it seems like he would be willing to try to do.
Yeah.
What bothers you more, the lack of motion, or
find Brandon Brooks and ask him if
or
if I
the
see him around the building?
The lack of under center.
Good question.
Yeah. Interesting. They were so extreme in both.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just 32nd in both. Under center was by the end of the year.
Run a single play all year long that was a pass under center that wasn't a fake tush push, right?
There were like 3 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, there were very few. And they were all in like the first drive kind of thing. It's like let's like have this thing, this game. You could tell it was like a, but it really was only like 3. I think there was like a pass to Goddard or something that wasn't like a fake. But by the end of the year, it had gotten comical. I mean, it was the Eagles ranked 32nd. They were at 2%. Single back, meaning like under center with one. And the second lowest was Indianapolis with Shane Steichen, but even they were above 6%. And I checked last year, and the Eagles were at exactly 6% and 31st. But I mean, the 32nd
Shane's
team,
offense all along.
And this is just single back. It doesn't include I formation, which the Eagles also never run, which is another way to be under center. So when you add the I formation and single back together, they're even like further behind everybody else. So it had gotten comical by the end, and the same with the motion. If you include, and I know Jalen Hurts hasn't had a lot of experience with like an under center play action type game, but if you include that and you still have some of the other stuff in there, I feel like you can be so much more effective. I mean, the Eagles, were among the top teams in the league in play action rate last year.
Yeah.
But when you watch the film, this is like the perfect thing where like you really need to watch the film. It is like the worst, some of the worst play fakes you've seen in your life.
Right.
Like the running back's like not even close to Jalen. Like the difference between the RPOs where he actually puts the ball in his belly and like takes it out, and the play action was like comical.
It's like perfunctory. It's like
just comical. Like sometimes the running back like wouldn't even be going the right way. Like it was just so obviously, and plus the offensive line is just clearly pass blocking. On those plays, the linebackers don't even take a step forward.
Sure, they're not worried about it.
Yeah, and then you watch the Eagles defense, like the linebackers are like seven, they take like 7 steps forward every time there's play action, and you're like, why don't we do that? Like.
So my understanding real quick of why they're not under center is they feel that the quarterback run game is much better from shotgun and from pistol because of the +1. But to that point, if you're not using your quarterback run game as a tool, then what you're doing is you're hindering yourself because you're not getting any of the benefits from under center.
They also don't do the +1 nearly as much as they did before. I mean, like near the end of last year after the injury, that got less. And this year it continued to be a lot of times that backside edge defender was in fact blocked by the tight end. So you're not actually doing the +1, in which case, what's it for?
Sure.
Like just the threat of it. And I mean, at this point, like, we should be able to have a offense that incorporates some of both. I mean, the average amount of under center in the league was 20%. It's not like we're asking the Eagles to go from 2% to 90% and take out all of the shotgun stuff. You're still going to be in shotgun on every pass down. You're still going to be in, it's like there's still going to be plenty of opportunities to do the stuff that you can do from the shotgun.
It is funny. It's a funny example of watch what they do and not listen to what they say, because like Nick loves the "a wise man avoids all extremes" line. And like this offense is so extreme in so many different ways in the way that they do things. It's like, just be a little more normal.
Normal would be great.
Normal's a relative term.
Having the press conference like 9 days after the playoffs.
I really like the comment that Quez is probably not going to be back on the team, and what if he was the one who handled protections? With too many variables.
That would explain a lot. Yeah.
The schedule.
Yeah. So
speaking of normal.
Yeah. Well, we've obviously known the Eagles' opponents since the end of Week 18, but most people don't really look at it right until the team's eliminated, and you kind of have a sense of what the team's going to be like. So yeah, looking at the schedule for next year, these are the opponents. Obviously, the actual schedule will be released in usually it's May.
Ooh, that looks good, Julia. Nicely done.
We've got So if you look at the screen.
I know
there.
you created the graphic, Deniz. I'm talking about the picture.
It really is
thing.
like
you always know Deniz's font. What font is that, by the way?
So the font is Adobe Garamond.
Okay.
It's the only font that I ever use.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And
it is a good looking font.
I have gotten so many Turkish undergraduates into top American graduate programs by insisting that they put their resume and their statement of purpose in this font.
How many are you
not to take
to?
any like tens and tens of students. So not to take credit away from them. I mean, they had they were good students.
It feels like you're taking credit away from them in a major way.
Listen, I mean, here's the thing, right? There are a lot of good students out there. I mean, you're competing against the best students in the world. When you're trying to get into like a PhD program at Yale or Stanford, something like that. I mean, you're trying to get into you're going up against.
They want to go to those Ivy League football meetings.
It's that little the Ivy League football reunions. Meet Julian. The small difference of the font when you're reading a statement of purpose or looking at a resume is massive. And so Garamond is the only font that I use. It's the only font that
formatting too. I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean, all those colors are the official team colors of each team, which I made sure to get right. But yeah, there we go. So there will be no gauntlet next year. No matter what order you put these games in, there can't really be a gauntlet. There are 8 games against teams that made the playoffs. And that's counting Dallas twice. This is the number of games. So there were 11 this last year.
Wow.
You could do a gauntlet. You could do.
I mean, but it wouldn't be.
I don't know if Pittsburgh's
Baltimore might win the Super Bowl. Like Cincinnati, if they get Burrow back, could be the best team in the league. The Rams could be
Anyone
good.
could be the best team in the league.
That Packers team could be really good. But you could order it, but yeah.
But listen. I mean, Canales is coming to town. Like, who knows what kind of challenges that's going to pose. There are 3 games against teams that made the divisional round. There were 7 last year. And 12-plus win teams.
I feel like this Canales thing is going to be a running bit.
Unfortunately so. Yeah. I do feel a little bad.
That game
good
is
for
gonna-
them. Good for them for like speaking their truth.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I'm going to take it on face value. That
See, we're
they've worked
getting-
through these things.
we're
Good
getting
for
at-
them. But there's no way that I'm going to forget about that ever. That's the
Absolutely.
only thing I'm ever going to think of when I look at that
Absolutely
guy.
not. And also, that game was going to have so little juice. Otherwise, like we just fixed the problem of the
Mistress Bowl,
the most
yeah.
juiceless game next year is gonna. So the 12-plus win teams, there are only 3 games against those teams, and two of them are Dallas. Okay, the only other one is Baltimore. This last year, there were not only 6 games against 12-plus win teams. 5 of them were in a row. That was the gauntlet, right? So I'm just saying, like, you don't even have the ingredients for that level of gauntlet here.
All right, Zach, let me ask you this. When I used to work for the Eagles, Chris McPherson and I,
Oh, you did a draft
we
of away
split
games.
the road games, right?
Yes.
Now, we did that with the schedule in mind, so the dates mattered. But let's say we were doing it ahead of time.
Yeah.
You and I are going to draft those 8 away games.
Okay.
I'll give you first pick. You want to do 1-2, 1-1-1, or you want to just go 1-1-1?
Should I have read the opponents
for
for the
you.
people listening, by the way?
Sure, yes.
Home is Atlanta, Carolina, Green Bay, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Jacksonville. And then the division games. And away is Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Rams, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. And 2 of those are repeats from
That's a
this
good
year.
job.
Yeah.
You know what? I sometimes forget about the audio
Yeah,
listeners. I gotta read that out.
I want to give a little mea culpa. I had been speaking for a few weeks that watch out for the Eagles having an international game this year because they have one extra home game and they haven't given up a home game to go internationally. You have to do one every 8 years. Well, the Europe games were already announced, and the Eagles are not a home team in those, and they're not on the road against any of those teams. So the only way the Eagles are international next year is if they play in Brazil. The Brazil game hasn't been announced.
And that would be
about-
an Eagles home game if it happens?
Aren't they one of the Brazil teams?
They are not a
Eagles?
Brazil team, the
Okay.
Eagles.
What about the game in Doha?
There's no game in Doha yet.
Yet.
But yeah, at some point.
So there's still a chance that one of the home games will move to Brazil?
There's a chance, but
Canales hits Rio.
Oh no! Oh gosh!
but-
I hope it's not during.
But typically those games go to the games with the internet, like the international rights holder of that market. And I
Eagles
don't
have a
believe
big fan base in Brazil.
the Eagles markets internationally are New Zealand, Australia, and then Africa. I
Yes.
just think they just
Yeah,
got
they get all of Africa,
They got
yeah.
the entire continent of Africa.
That's the way a lot of the white world views Africa.
There you go.
I need to talk to somebody.
I thought it was
because
specifically Ghana.
Was it
within
specifically
that.
Ghana?
Yeah.
I need to
Okay,
talk
I
to
take it
somebody
back.
because American football is like definitely big enough in Turkey that it would be like super well received.
Just get him on the phone with Roger. He can make this happen.
I actually like think that would be
Okay,
a
I
good
like that.
decision. Like it's not just because I'm Turkish and I live there. And
How are the
and
stadiums in Turkey? Is it
Oh,
okay?
stadiums are
Okay,
really
because
good.
that's like the first thing that they.
Oh, that's the stadiums are great. I mean, like Turkey's hosted multiple Champions League finals. We'll be hosting the European Championships coming up. So.
I would love a trip to
Yeah,
Istanbul.
no, the stadiums are easily good enough.
we
it's-
teased it. We'll do the draft. Real
Yeah.
quick.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
You go if you. It's going to go 1-2, 1-1-1-1. You can
Yeah.
pick whether you would rather go first or second.
I'll go second.
Okay.
You can get first pick.
I would take New Orleans.
Okay. I knew you were going to New Orleans.
Yeah, I like New Orleans.
You want a Giacomo's meal, or are you more of a hurricane guy on?
No, I'm not a
Bourbon Street?
hurricane guy.
You know, too much
No,
sugar.
the food. Too much. The food is
Yeah.
great. It's
I-
a great.
Giacomo's has
weekend
gone
town.
downhill, I feel.
I haven't been to New Orleans since the Eagles played in the
I feel
playoffs
like
there.
it's gone downhill.
Okay, well then I'm definitely going to Rams then.
Sure.
Great stadium. Always enjoy LA. So yeah.
You get another one.
Oh, I thought we were going 1-1-1-1.
No, I said 1-2, 1-1-1.
Gotcha.
That's you got to pick whether you got
Okay.
first or second.
So then yeah, it's not a great road schedule
not,
otherwise. You know what? I guess I would do. I guess I'll do Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Because you only go one every eight years. Although the 17th game now, there's a chance it could be sooner. But you get to see a good game. Joe Burrow's back. You can stay downtown and walk. There's some good restaurants in Cincinnati. Easy flight, and it's a different city. If you time it up well, when the college football weekend, maybe you can go to Columbus that morning And on the day before, see an Ohio State game. Ohio State's absolutely loaded next year. They just got Julian Sayin, and they got Downs from Alabama. So, so I would go with Cincinnati.
Yeah, this is tough. The rest of it is not that exciting. I would just go Dallas.
Okay, well then give me Tampa, right?
Yeah, you love Tampa.
Yeah, easy flight, good food. You know, you can get Burns Steakhouse in there.
You love Burns. Yeah, I would take Baltimore. Give me the just trip to that stadium, even though we went for preseason last year.
Okay, you got the quick drive then.
You take the Giants, I take Washington. That's unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys
there
like crab cakes?
I love crab cakes.
Yeah, that's my.
Crab cakes and football.
That's my kind of food. I can't be like working on getting the crab out of the thing.
I'm trying to fight against disagreeing with you. Crab cakes to me are overrated. Just give me the crab meat. I want the crab meat. Too often the crab cake is too much filling.
It's one of the biggest like things of like you need a good one.
Yes,
because a bad one will just be filling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You need one of the best.
I'd much rather just give me some crab meat. But
my dad lives in the Maryland Eastern Shore now, so it's a good excuse to get some crab cakes. Yeah.
All right, we do need to close, Deniz, unless you've got any more trenchant Eagles thoughts. With I know you're a man who likes to think through things.
Oh man,
the time machine problem. Where are you leaning?
So this is so hard for me. Like I don't want to go back and change anything.
We need to find rules.
Yeah, like it's like part of me is like, okay, I want to go back and see like the Mayan ball game or something, like something crazy like that where it would be like awesome to go see it, right? But the moment I get out of that time machine into like the Mayan civilization,
boom, you're dead.
Oh, like it would take like 14 seconds for them to identify me, realize I should be killed, and kill me.
Well,
right?
What if they thought you were a god?
That would be interesting. That would.
I think that's on the table.
In fifth grade, Joy and I did something called Maya Quest, where we learned all about the Mayans.
That's not the way I want to experience it either.
I thought we were not talking about your fifth grade class.
We're not, but we did Maya Quest in fifth grade. Yeah,
Maya Quest. That's good. I would want to go back and like observe as a if I could like get into if I could look like someone from then. If that's part of it,
you get to disguise yourself.
Disguise myself in a way where it's like no one's saying like who is this freak?
Okay.
No one would say that in general.
Then like I would want to go back to like different eras of Istanbul, for example, like before the like during the Byzantine times, and I would hang out in the same neighborhood.
Oh, I like
for
that.
like one day. In like the 1200s, and then in the 1500s, and then in the 18, you know what I mean? Like just kind of go through, and then eventually like slowly bring it back to the times that I know. That would be really cool to kind of see. But
you need the guarantee that you're not
gonna get like beheaded
or changing anything.
Not changing anything. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like the conquest will still happen, and like it's not just the Byzantine Empire will not just like remain or whatever. Because then I wouldn't really exist then. But yeah, I also I'm not beheaded. I asked Emily this morning, and the first question was, "Can I take things?" I was like, "What would you take? Like like gold and guns?" And I was like, "Gold and guns? Like where are you going?" And then she was like, "Well, I would need to like buy things and protect myself." And then she said, "Actually, I'd want to go back to like." The dinosaurs, I
thought about that too.
But then I was like, wouldn't they just eat you? And she said, that's why I'm taking guns. And I was like, wait, what? You're using the time machine so you can go kill dinosaurs? like just go shoot dinosaurs? Like it's not enough that we've damaged current animals. We have to go back.
Their number one goal in life is to go shoot some dinosaurs.
So I loved her answer. It was just like, yeah, it's so good.
No.
All right.
I like that.
Now that's what the luxury of having a chance to think and consider.
Sure, yeah. Tough spot for you.
Yeah, which is a lot different than most things in our show. Often the open of the show. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You feel good about Google?
Look. There's different ways I could have answered that question. I'm not ashamed of the one thing, and I brought this up before the show. I did want to point this out because I never want to kind of like talk money on the show, but for the purpose
that's all you talk about.
No.
is getting more.
No, is that like you acted like investing in Google's IPO would all of a sudden would suddenly like make it such that you never have to ever work again.
Okay.
And I think you're estimating.
But then
what
why didn't you
Google's
aim
idea
higher?
Was. Well, it was more of like a placeholder device for
Okay, I see.
using. You go back and you invest in something that appreciates greatly over time. So that, like the Google's IPO, I say that because that was within our lifetime. But there have been IPOs before our lifetime that would be more beneficial to be a part of. So in any event,
There's
more
a
of
reason
placeholder.
that in Back to the Future, Biff, who is like the cartoony kind of evil character, is the one who thinks like, I'm going to use this time machine to make money by betting on these things. And that's like exactly what you're saying. So it makes a lot of sense to question how that's like the first thing you think of.
Well, that wasn't the first thing. It was.
Well, I mean, it was the first thing.
No, it wasn't the first thing. I just simply, I'm not trying to like, there's stuff with family I would like to go back to. If it's a matter of like only observation, there's a lot of things I would like to occur.
You know what? We didn't really talk through that.
We didn't set the parameters.
If it's like you get to relive your life in your own body for a day, that's a different, that's a
that would
different
be like
conversation,
go like do a day in high school or something. Like that would be like crazy, like to look back and remember like what that's like.
Yeah, that there's things that like you would want to change about history, but I was simply, it's like a placeholder device is the IPO of a obviously enormous company. So
it's funny that you would then use that to get compound interest and become a billionaire, and you would still be waiting for Jalen Hurts to come out from getting dressed.
If you're
like
passionate about what you do, I love doing this job. So I hope to continue. Well, I hope I keep kind of improving and progressing. But I'm not. I always want to. Like I've said this for the 5 years we've done the show. I want to work until I'm literally not able to work anymore.
Okay.
And I stand by that one. Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast.
Wait, real quick. Let's just set up next week.
Next week,
Yes.
I'm heading down to Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl.
Good food down there in Mobile.
Solid food.
It's like a lighter version of New Orleans. Like it's a lot of the New Orleans flair without the volume. So yeah, I've had a lot of good meals. Some with you in Mobile.
I look forward to it. I love being in Mobile.
Yeah.
So you will have somebody else with you on the show on Monday and Thursday. Maybe I'll dip in on Tuesday.
I hope
think
so.
I'm going to have a special show on Wednesday from Mobile. We'll figure all of that out. I'll be back on Friday. But yeah, little PHLY Eagles podcast on the road. And then we're really on the road the next week. We're going to Vegas.
Yes.
Zach's favorite place in the world. You know why? It's all about that money.
Now,
It's all about that money.
It's good food.
Zach,
it's good food.
Shield made this
It's good
point.
weather.
Every single place you say has good food, so there is no differentiating factor to it. There's no place that doesn't have good food.
And as I said that to Shield, and I stand by this, in life you find what you're looking for. If you're looking to find a reason to complain about something, you'll find a reason to complain. If you're looking to find joy in something, you can find the joy. But if you're looking to find a good meal, you can find a good meal. If you're any person it's like you can't get a good meal there, they're just looking to complain. They're not actually looking to get to get a good meal. So that's like a matter of attitude. I've told this to you before. You're as happy as you want to be, right? So I believe.
I think that's a little bit unfair. But
Okay.
I think it's unfair
what
to
about
like
people with clinical depression?
Yeah, I think it's unfair to like the 99% of people who aren't as happy as they want to be to say that.
Okay. I like Las Vegas because it's good food, good weather. I enjoy a blackjack table from time to time. Okay, you never have to turn your head very far to see a sports game on television. You typically don't have to rent a car because you can get from place to place walking or by public transit. The airport's close to.
What's the Waymo situation?
I don't believe Vegas has Waymo. But so, anyways,
Seems like the kind of lawless place that would.
Yes.
well, I mean, I don't want to deviate from this. We can get into the safety rates of a Waymo car versus.
Oh no! I'm totally pro driverless cars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think anything's more dangerous than human drivers.
Yes, thank you. So that's but as I was saying about Mobile, yeah, you find good food there as you can in Vegas. But I bring this up.
Prostitution is legal?
I wouldn't know that. Senior Bowl.
Does Carolina have a game in Vegas next year? Check the
Senior
schedule.
Bowl is kind of almost the official start, I would say,
Yes.
of our PHLY draft coverage, which I'm confident is going to be kind of comprehensive and informative and nuanced during these next few months. So Bo is going to get his eyes on these players. He's going to be there talking to valuable people, and it's the start. Really, it's January 26th now. So really, we're looking at 3 months until the draft, and this is a time where that coverage is going to kick into higher gear.
All right. Well, we certainly look forward to that, and that's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thank you to Deniz for taking time. Thanks to Julia for making it all happen. Thanks to Zach for putting up with all of the nonsense. We appreciate everybody listening and watching. We will talk to you on Monday. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.